Hello and welcome back to the One United podcast. I'm joined as ever by Henry. Henry, how you doing?
Pissed. You?
A little bit, probably not as much as you are, but life goes on. And we're delighted to be joined again by In the Know Joe Lyons. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
It's a good pleasure to have you as always. Obviously, the episode is going to be centered around this complete humiliation yesterday. I think it's fair to say. So I think we've been eagerly awaiting your opinions on it, Henry. So I'll open the floor up to you. How are you feeling about the game?
I'm baffled. I'm baffled as to how the game went. And when we went 1-0 up, there was kind of an expectation that we'd go on and push further because the first 15 minutes were actually quite good in the game, and I thought we put a lot of pressure on them. And I mean, Allison, what the hell was that guy doing? He's so bad when you put pressure on him. I know he's had personal issues and stuff, and I completely understand that might affect confidence and whatever. But you put pressure on him and he just falls apart. So why we didn't keep doing that and why we dropped off them and then let them have space is way beyond me. So there's a lot of frustration from yesterday, and I don't ever have an issue with lack of talent and skill and whatever. I don't have an issue with that. I have an issue with doing the basics wrong. A top footballer in a game like that should not get the basics wrong. Passing, 5-yard passes. Why on earth is Luke Shaw trying to dribble out from the back through middle between 4 players? Just completely beyond me. So we're doing everything we haven't been doing for this season, and I'm just so confused. I don't know what he said to them in the dressing room before the game, because there was motivation for 15 minutes, and then after that it just fell apart. So I'm just speechless, beyond words with this. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, fair enough. I think, Alan, to answer your question, how's the recovery going? Just look at Emery's face. That'll tell you all you need to know. But Joe, I'll come to you. I think it was seen as a pretty winnable game yesterday, in all fairness. So to come out the other end of what was realistically a bit of a hiding, how disappointed are you?
To be honest, I wasn't overly as disappointed. I think I would have been if it was a regular game. Obviously, we've had such a big amount of games in a short amount of time. So you could see the fatigue on the players, especially Luke Shaw. That's his second game in 48 hours, and he was clearly struggling for fitness. He couldn't keep up with Salah, and obviously they were, the players were inside the stadium resting from, about 2 o'clock. So, despite the poor performance, and even there, as Henry said, there's no excuse for people, like Fred giving the ball away needlessly in the middle of the park, and I said Shaw just running into oblivion. It wasn't good, and you could tell the confidence levels were knocked. They didn't gel as a team whatsoever. But I think even after that first 20 minutes, I thought we were really good. I thought we were impressive, and we were the pressing was really good, and then it just seemed like the stamina just went, and it was like these are the effects of having so many games in such a short amount of time. But it's just something. Our league position's already confirmed. All we can do is move on and finish the season on a high and go into that Europa League final with everything focused on it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll start from the start. Obviously, it was a good first 20 minutes. Bruno technically getting a goal. How that's been gifted to him, I'm not quite sure. But Henry, after that goal, we struggled to see any sort of the game out, didn't we? I think we put a bit of pressure on for the next 10 minutes and then sat back. So do you think this was a fitness issue with the players, or do you think this was just poor game management by Ole?
I'm going to allude to something, and I know people are not going to agree with me, and that's fine. I don't understand what Solskjaer does when he plays the Roma leg, the second leg. I don't know why he played a strong team. Completely beyond me. I don't know why he played a strong team. They're open. We're able to attack them with youngsters. If you ship 5 goals, you look like a bit of an idiot. But I don't understand why he went with such a strong team. And then the Villa game was good. Again, had to come from behind because I think it was behind anyway. But we were so poor at spells in that game. We are poor in spells of games. I think people forget that because we win these games. We have 15, 20-minute spells where we score loads of goals. That's what happens with us in games. It's like a second win. But then the Leicester game, again, bringing Rashford, Cavani and Fernandes on, is that necessary? I know it was 1-1 at the time, but they come on and Leicester, from that corner when they came on, score the goal. It makes no sense. I don't get it. Fernandes played so many games. I mean, Luke Shaw had a rest, which is fair enough, but Rashford, he's clearly injured. We've said it so many times. He's hobbling. There's all this talk of that challenge from Henderson last year, and he's still got a floating bit of bone in his left foot, and he's pulling out of tackles, and he's struggling. He's hobbling around, and then bringing a 34-year-old Cavani on for 25 minutes. Why not just rest him? Because then you've got pressing for 90 minutes in the next game. You've got, full minutes in the tank. His decisions sometimes are baffling. Bringing Matic on at the end of the game instead of Van der Beek. If I'm Donny Van der Beek, I'm knocking on the manager's door saying, I'm going in the summer. I'm fed up of this. A bum with no legs has just been picked over him for the last 10 minutes of a game. That's embarrassing. That is embarrassing. So there are many, many questions that United fans have about that performance yesterday, and many, many issues about the performance. I know Fred got slandered after the game. He got abused, which is disgraceful. Again, this boycott thing has clearly done nothing. So they need to introduce some sort of ID. So that's a different story. But the same energy has to be for both midfielders. Scott McTominay, 70% pass accuracy. 70%! Out of 46 passes, 70%. That's dreadful. That's awful. I know Fred gave the ball away a few times, and we United fans like to criticise the foreign players, and then the homegrown ones, we cuddle them when they make a mistake. Seriously, keep the same energy for all the players. Luke Shaw was awful. I know he looked like he was tired, but he was awful. Marcus Rashford scored a goal, but other than that, awful. He had one moment in the game, and he did all right with it, but it wasn't running properly, and it was just so disjointed. And Eric Bailly, he's just answered everyone's question. Is he ready to be a kind of starter for Manchester United? Absolutely not. He's not. He's too rash. He dives into challenges. He's making a challenge midway between our half and the halfway line for no reason when the back four is about 15 yards behind him. What is he doing? So let's answer a few questions about who we want in our team. And then we're linked with a player, Aaron Barry, who's in playing for Getafe because he's a cheaper option. We're linked with him. He's got a worse pass percentage than Fred this year. And he's playing in a league where they literally don't press you. They just stand there and let you pass the ball. Oh, completely baffled and wow. That's all I can say on that.
Fair enough. I'll come to you then, Joe. We'll start from the back of the team because it was a game of bad performances, but I think notably Dean Henderson didn't really have his best game. Now, I'm a massive fan of Dean Henderson. I think he's the future number one at United. This is contentious between him and De Gea at the minute, but I think Dean Henderson will have it in the future. What did you make of his performance? And do you think, are you along with a lot of people on Twitter by saying that this proves he's not good enough for United?
Not a chance. No, I'm a really big fan of Dean Henderson, and one of the things I praised him for after that Spurs game was how quickly he came off his line, and how good he was at pressing down on the attacker coming forward. But last night it just seemed like everything fell apart for him, and it was just mistake after mistake. The Salah, I don't know why he just stood there for the Salah goal and didn't even attempt to run forward and put any pressure on him whatsoever. And obviously the spill that led to I think it was Firmino's goal. I'm not sure that I agree with the people saying that he's not ready to be the number one, because I think he has shown it in parts of the season. And we have to remember that when De Gea came in, at the early stages of his career, he was, making mistake after mistake, and it's a learning curve essentially. He was brilliant at Sheffield United. I think it might be a bit of a confidence issue at the minute, but from what I've seen so far of him this season, I have, little to no complaints. And he's been so good this season. He's allowed a day off or two, but I think it was a bit of an overreaction to some extent last night. Of maybe it was just the Gea fans trying to get their agenda across. But no, I'm happy with Henderson, and I wanted to be our number one.
Yeah, I was saying yesterday that I think it's possible the occasion got to him because he's not experienced in big games at the minute, is he? Obviously, with playing for Sheffield United, and obviously when we're in the Champions League, he didn't see many minutes at all. So I think maybe his confidence needs to be boosted in these big games because he's not played in a game like this before. We saw that when he didn't come off the line for Salah's goal. He wouldn't usually do that. He's usually rapid off his line. So, I think there is an element of that. But we'll move forwards to the defence, Henry, because I know historically you're not Maguire's biggest fan, but surely you can't deny that Maguire's the glue in this defence at the minute, isn't he?
Well, Maguire in the last 6 months has changed massively, might I just add, especially in terms of leadership. There are a lot of problems with him in regards to the Martial game, the Spurs game where Martial got himself sent off. He wasn't pressing the ref. There was no kind of protest from him. And in recent games, we've seen a lot of that from him. I think he's maybe learned it a bit from Bruno, which is fair enough. But he's now willing to speak up, and yeah, he is the glue. And people saying he's not the glue for England as well. If you got John Stones and like Tyrone Mings at the back, we are going to get knocked out in the group stage. Not even a question. So I think, Harry Maguire he's critical to that back line. I don't know what Solskjaer's going to do on the Fulham game. I hope Tuanzebe gets a game. I really do. Instead of Bailly's just signed a new contract, but he is just not good enough. I'm seeing things that he reminds me of Vidic, but like a Wish.com version, because he's too rash and he doesn't have the footballing brain quite clearly. His passing range is limited, and his position, he's like Wan-Bissaka. When you had him and Wan-Bissaka on one side of the defence, after about half an hour, you're thinking, this is a big problem, because positionally, they're both awful. I know Wan-Bissaka's a good tackler and whatever, but let's be quite clear with something. Positioning is all over the place from both of them. So we got unstuck in that. That's why Jota had a good game. He hasn't had a good game when he started for like 2 or 3 months, Diogo Jota. And we made him look like prime Messi in that game because we were just so poor defensively. And then, it's proving Lindelof needs to be cuddled by Maguire because he was making mistakes. There was no leadership at the back. And it just seems so disjointed. And I know they haven't played much together, and that can be an excuse, but not for being that bad. Come on. We've seen Sheffield United defend better this season. And they're getting relegated potentially, they'll be down there with one of the record worst points totals in Premier League history. And they've defended better in games than we defended yesterday. So that's how poor it was. Really, really poor. And we got a cup final coming up against Villarreal. Gerard Moreno, Paco Alcacer, they're going to have a field day with those lot at the back. Have an absolute field day. So something's got to change because I can't watch another game of those two in the middle at the back. It was just Calamity FC.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll move forward. Obviously, we've spoke about Shaw and Wan-Bissaka a little bit. I'll come to you, Joe, because I'm in agreement with you that I'm a fan of McTominay, but obviously himself and Fred didn't have the best game. Their track record speaks for itself. As a partnership, as we're using them as a partnership, we are successful in games. We've lost 3 games with Fred in the midfield in the league so far this season. That's a good record. But do you think yesterday highlighted that they're both not quite up to standard, or do you think it's just a bit of an off game?
I think considering the consistency they've shown over the past couple of seasons, like they've always been Solskjaer's go-to men if they have a big game, and they've always been that midfield partnership. So I think, you have to, consider the possibility of it possibly just being an off night. And, with the amount of games they've played in a short amount of time, McTominay and Fred are both workhorses. They cover a lot of ground. They're both box to box. So they have arguably the most work to do on the pitch at times. But I agree that I don't think Fred particularly is going to be the man to, ever lead us back to a Premier League title. I think he came here with a 50 million price tag from Shakhtar. Didn't impress in his first season whatsoever. Stepped up his game a bit, but I think we've seen his height and his peak. I don't think he can take us any further on that midfield. I have a different opinion on McTominay. I'm a huge fan of McTominay. I think he can definitely be a part of a title-winning squad, whether it be just rotationally or even in the starting role. But I think he needs the right player beside him. And while we've seen glimpses of McTominay and Fred being fantastic, if we want to win a title, I don't think them two are going to bring that. So I think personally, I would like to see Declan Rice alongside McTominay. Someone who's going to provide that defensive cover just in front of Maguire, and hopefully our new centre back is. I don't want to see Lindelof again. But I think McTominay is definitely one for the future. I think he's also been a real goal threat going forwards as well. We need those goals from midfield, and he's a lot better going forward than he is defending. He's not a defensive midfielder whatsoever. Even like playing just behind the 10, I think he would be okay. And he's 6'4". He always has that presence in the box. But Fred's passing accuracy spoke for itself last night. He was unbelievably clumsy on the ball. We've seen loads of performances where Fred's been like that this season. And it's hard to believe he's actually Brazilian, because I haven't seen a Brazilian with passing as bad as that before. So sloppy, careless, but for now he's going to have to do, because we have no other option. And I don't think personally Van de Beek works in a system with Bruno Fernandes and Paul Pogba. And I actually was somewhat of a ball dominant player, and you've got to hand it off to the Bruno and Pogba on this side. So Van de Beek is, I think, replacing him with Fred wouldn't be the best idea, since Fred at least provides a bit of defensive cover. I don't know if Donny could play that holding midfield role. I'm not too sure. I think he's better going forward, but he would probably be a box to box like McTominay. But the two, McTominay and Fred, it's been great having them, and they've shown some great consistency. But if we want to go to that next level, there has to be someone else brought in.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll send it over to you, Henry, because obviously we're seeing Pogba in a wider left position now, which against low block teams I'm very much a fan of. I think arguably it's his best position depending on the opposition. But he came unstuck yesterday, didn't he, against a team who were good defensively. So do you think it was the wrong move playing him out wide? Do you think we should have seen him more into the middle, especially since we lacked that distribution from the middle, which he very much could have offered, especially as well because we saw the impact that Greenwood had coming off the bench, and when Rashford was shifted over to the left, he scored his goal. So do you think we probably should have started with our traditional front three and Pogba in the middle?
I don't like Pogba on the left. I just don't. I don't like him there at all. He doesn't play there for France. He's never played there for Juve. He's not a left midfielder. He's just not. He's not built for it. He's not built for, he's built in a way that he protects the ball very well. He's good at dominating two or three players and getting through them. His ball retention, by the way, sometimes he loses the ball, but usually it's fantastic. You can't get the ball off him. So, and his drive and runs, he's a box-to-box midfielder. That's what he is. And that's what he's played at as for France. He won a World Cup with France playing as a box-to-box player. That's what he is. McTominay and Fred, and I've said this before, they're so limited. And I'm not just picking on McTominay or Fred. Both of them are limited in the way that they can play football. McTominay's ball recoveries are very low every game. Fred's ball recoveries are quite high, but his passing accuracy is usually quite poor. McTominay, he's a bench player. I always ask myself one key question every time people say, are they good enough to play for Manchester United? Would they get in any of the teams in the top six other than Manchester United? Manchester City would not have Scott McTominay or Fred in their team. Not good enough. Liverpool, Thiago, Wijnaldum and Fabinho, much better players, all of them. More capable on and off the ball. And Leicester, Ndidi and Tielemans. There's no way in hell you're getting in over those two, McTominay and Fred. So even Spurs, Højbjerg, I'm quite a big fan of Højbjerg. I think he's a bit of a prick, but I think he's a good player. And Ndombele, I think, is a fantastic player. And then, is he better than Thomas Partey? Even at Arsenal, is he better than Thomas Partey? Either of them? No, I don't think they are.
Probably on form. McTominay is. Partey's had a shocking season.
Yeah, but Partey playing for Atletico Madrid in Champions League semi-finals and very reliable. He only left because he had a release clause. So I always ask myself, would they get? We're comparing ourselves to City. That's what we always do, and we always compare ourselves to the champions. Would they get in Chelsea's team over Kante, Jorginho, Kovacic? No way. Absolutely not a chance. So McTominay would be good as a squad player. He's fine as a squad player. Play him in League Cup games, the FA Cup games, whatever. Stick him in there. But you want someone alongside Paul Pogba, a capable defensive midfielder. We've alluded to Declan Rice before. And I think it's a possibility if we didn't have, again, pricks for owners, because they're not going to go and spend 250 million this summer on Rice, Sancho, and whether it's Koulibaly or Koundé. They're not going to do that because they don't have the wealth to inject it into the club, and they're not going to. They'll take their dividends again this year. They always do. Those letters. Don't be fooled by those letters. They're a lie. All of them, they're a lie. So they're not going to go and buy 3 or 4 top players. But we do need a top defensive midfielder to go alongside a box-to-box midfielder. Paul Pogba is not a left midfielder. The balance in the team is horrendous with him on there. It's so bad, and Rashford can't play on the right-hand side. He doesn't want to. So what happens is we bring Greenwood on, and we move Rashford to the left, and we score. And everyone's going, oh, yeah, maybe Pogba's better suited to the middle where he can pass with Fernandes and link with every single one of them. He's better as a box-to-box midfielder. He is not a left winger. And McTominay and Fred are just not. They're not good enough. Keane said it yesterday. With both of those, or with either one of them in there, you will not win a Premier League title. You won't. You can kiss goodbye. Fernandinho is 35 years old and he's better than both of them combined. He does a better job than both of them combined. If you need 2 players to do one position, then maybe you've got to think that both of them aren't good enough to do that position in the first place.
Fair enough. What I'll say about Pogba is I think that I've lost my train of thought. Yeah, I think he's good on the left wing, very much dependent on who he's coming up against. I think if there's no space left in behind, then Pogba's your man to go to. Like they're the sort of games where even Rashford struggles and Dan James struggles because there's not that explosive pace. That explosive pace they've got isn't needed because there's no space in behind. That's where Pogba can come in off the left, where he's got more space and create more. But I think against a team like Liverpool, where they're going to press you high and they're going to leave gaps in behind, that's why I think Pogba out left was a mistake yesterday. But I still think he's got something to offer out on the left. I don't know if either of you want to talk about any of the other attackers. I mean, Cavani wasn't worth mentioning because we played that poorly. They just didn't see the ball. I don't think that's really his fault. Obviously, he should have already scored in the first couple of minutes. But other than that, I can't really put any blame on him.
Greenwood was our best player, and he was on the pitch for 23 minutes.
It was nice to see him come on and do well and make an impact. But yeah, has anyone else got anything to say on the game?
He just brings balance to the team. You're not too one-sided then. And I know Pogba might be able to do a job on the left, and that's fine. But if you're against a low-block team, surely you want a right player and 2 central players that can break the team down, because it gives you an extra option. Just a thought. That's all.
I think it's a fair point, but we don't have a left winger that, like, other than Pogba, that can break a team down. Rashford can't play intricate passes or maze his way through 5 different people. He's very much knock it past you and run. That's where he specialises. That was my point. I think Pogba's the only sort of winger we have that could break a team down.
That's what Greenwood does, in my view, with left or right foot. So, but
go on. What were you going to say, Joe?
I think Pogba's, he's one of the best midfielders in the world when he's on form. So even at left wing, he can still do a job regardless. He's still got a purpose out there. And I think when we've played some of our best football this season, it's been with him out the left. But working out where to accommodate Rashford in that, because I think he's also in his best position as a left winger. And as Henry said, on the right, he hasn't got into that, form that we've seen. And, he hasn't been fully fit for 2 years. So I think it's harsh to judge him based on the performances that he's had, because he's struggling with niggles, and when he's not fully fit, he doesn't have that quick burst off his feet, the turn of pace that we saw when he had his debut in his first couple of seasons. So I'm going to be a little less harsh on Rashford, and I think up until his goal last night, I thought he was poor, and I thought he should have been subbed off before that, maybe even around half time, just to give him even a bit of rest, because he was the United player that has played the most amount of minutes in those 4 games that we had in that short space of time. So I thought maybe it was a risk to play him last night. I probably would have started Ahmad, maybe. I know Dan James is out injured, which is a shame, and he would have been a useful squad player, especially coming off the bench. But I still think Pogba, he's still good enough of a player to have an impact on the left wing, even though it might not be his preferred position.
Yeah, fair enough. Right, and anyone else got anything to say on the game? We'll move on to protests then. Obviously, we've been away for a while, so we've not covered them entirely. But obviously, Joe, you were there at the protest yesterday, which gives us a bit of an inside scoop. So, just sort of in general, what was it like? What was the atmosphere like?
It was very different to last week. Obviously, the amount of police there was completely different. There was probably one police officer for every 2 protesters. So I think I've seen on Twitter the operation in total for the cost like £1 million for the Leicester game and the game yesterday. So we're going to take that fight to Joel Glazer, because I'm not sure he has the money to keep up with all the police and the amount of protests that United fans are going to keep on planning. So it's a race to see how much really he can pull out of his back pocket. But the protests yesterday, the atmosphere was brilliant. I thought there was a good camaraderie amongst the fans. They were all getting along, apart from a few idiots. But you're going to get that at every protest. Like, no protest is going to be picture perfect, or there's always going to be the media is going to pick out a couple of things and portray it as a whole bad picture. But I thought whenever the United fans were marching up the road to where they thought the Liverpool bus was going to come in, it was unbelievable. The atmosphere, cars were stopping, beeping, pulling down their windows and cheering the fans on. So it was really good to see, because United fans, this is something that means so much to them. This football club is the heart of the city, so they're going to fight for absolutely everything, and they're not going to give up.
Yeah, fair enough. Henry, from an outside point of view, what did you make of the protests last week and this week?
Last week, people were very critical of the fans that got into the stadium. I'm not so critical. I don't like violence at all. I'm just going to add that. Any violence is just out of order. It's just wrong. You shouldn't do it. Shouldn't get involved with that stuff, because it puts a bad reputation on the rest of the fans that have gone and tried to do it peacefully. But I think if the fans don't break into the stadium and get on the pitch, I don't think it gets noticed as much. And this is one thing that people seemingly forget about protests. If you're doing a peaceful protest, the reality is it's going to do fuck all, really. Like, you're not going to get anything out of it, are you? We've forced the Glazers, whether they'll use the club's money or not, to pay for it, to pay over £1 million on security, and saw it yesterday, and I thought the fans were again good and not causing too much of a fuss. I think the decoy bus was, if you're having to use decoy buses as ownership to get players into the ground, you've got a big problem, a bigger problem than they think it is at the moment. And there's Joel Glazer does not have that much money. I know people always allude to the $1.5 billion that they've taken out of the club. Let's be very clear on something. Around $1 billion of that has been spent on servicing debt. It's not been taken out, and the owners don't have it in their pockets. The rest is going to, directors' fees is for the rest of the Glazer family, pretty much. So if Joel Glazer is trying to keep the income, I think it might be a little bit easier to get him out than people are making out. So the Hut Group have just pulled out of a £200 million 10-year kit deal, training kit deal. That's huge money for these lot. That's big money. That's money in their pockets that's going missing now. And Melita USA are close to pulling out of a sponsorship deal that they're in with United. and there's been conversations with shareholders as well about their discontent with these owners. So keep going, keep it up, keep pushing, because the Glazer family are not rich. They're not. They're rich compared to us, but in footballing owner terms, they're not rich. You know, they used bank loans to buy the club. They didn't use their own money. So, you know, hitting them in the pocket will hurt more than people think it will. It will hurt a lot. And, you know, they keep saying they're going to invest in the squad. Unless they're going to magic up the money from somewhere or get bank loans or whatever, they don't have the capital to do that. They don't have the money to do that. They've lost almost close to 200 million in terms of the market cap of the actual company itself, or you know, Manchester United as an entity, because the share price has gone down over $2 in the last week and a half. That is a lot of money. That's the price of the club going down. And if that keeps going down, they'll sell. They'll have to, because they won't see a way out. Fans are relentless. And, you know, hopefully protests at the Fulham game. And if fans do get in, slightly get on the pitch, lads. Get on the pitch and stop that game from happening as well. Don't care if we get deducted 3 points. If it meant that United got relegated and the Glazers left because of it, fine by me. United fans need their football club back. I don't care how they do it without violence. I don't care how they do it, but United fans need the football club back from these leeches.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, the final question for you then, Joe. Obviously, you've been at both so far. Where do we go from here? Because obviously the protests seem to be going well. There's a bit of an initial boom, but if it all sort of settles down behind the scenes, even despite these protests, do you think that we just carry on as we are, or do you think the protests need to evolve a little bit?
I think the protesting needs to be done in a different way. Obviously, the Glazers are in America. They can turn a blind eye to absolutely anything they want. You know, they're probably sitting in their nice Florida mansion, you know, doing whatever they want, and you know, they don't even have to listen to the news. But when it starts actually affecting them, that's when it's hitting their pockets. And as we mentioned, the sponsorship deals that's what's going to, I think, drive them out of the club. And we've obviously seen that £200 million training kit deal done, and you know, failed. So if United fans really want to send a message to the Glazers, it has to be money wise. It can't just be, you know, getting into the ground. And obviously that has been a really good a statement to the Glazers, and I'm sure they're listening. But it has to be now attacking the sponsors, boycotting the sponsors, not buying the merchandise. Obviously, you know, you can't expect fans not to go to the ground, because protesting has to be done on the ground as well as, you know, outside. So it has to be, you know, I think the more bad PR, this is absolutely awful for the image of the club. This is really bad PR. And you had that PR guy, Charlie Brooks, talking about how the Glazers cared for the club and they were passionate about it, which obviously, you know, Joel Glazer I don't think he had authorised any of that, in my opinion. But yeah, this has to hit harder than just, you know, cancelling games. Like, they have to see this you know, failure. And, you know, I said the share prices, the stocks, they have to see the money coming out of their bank account. And the more bad PR this club gets, the more sponsors are going to want to pull out. I can't imagine Adidas are very happy. You know, they've got this huge kit deal with United. You got sponsors like, you know, Kohler on the shirts. You've got TeamViewer that have had their ratings online go down massively. And these are companies that aren't going to be happy with it, because they've paid big money to be a sponsor of one of the biggest football clubs in the world. And when they see their own image going down as well as United's, they're going to want to pull out, because this is just destroying their company. So the more this continues to happen, I think the more likely the Glazers are to sell. But it has to continue. We've seen, you know, in 2010, when the protests originally began outside Old Trafford. I know they took over in 2005 and there was protests then, but the green and gold movement started in 2010. And it sort of died out when we won the league. And then there was a few years after that, it was pretty stagnant, and it's came back. You can say whatever you want on social media. You can get whatever you want trending, but this has to hit the pockets. So that's the route United fans are going to have to go to get the Glazers out.
Yeah, just to see us out then, Henry, do you agree with what Joe's saying? How do you think the protests need to evolve?
Absolutely. These people are businessmen. They're not footballing people. They don't look at games. They look at spreadsheets. So the most important thing for them is how much money is coming in per year and how much their money they're going to be able to put in their pockets in dividends and directors' fees and, you know, back channels from the club. So financially is the best way, is the only way to get these lot out of the club. It is the only way you can do it. These little PR stunts from Joel Glazer, the first of all, the apology about the Super League, then the letter promising to be in the fans forum conveniently after the season, so that, you know, it's all bollocks. He might turn up to this fans forum for 30 seconds and go, "Hi everyone," and then piss off, because he does not care about the supporters or, you know, people are thinking, oh, he might change. It's been 16 years and you think he's going to change? This is the first communication we've had from Joel Glazer in 15 years. First communication in 15 years. That's embarrassing. They're owners of a football club. They're supposed to care. And if people think that they care now, because it's only because they're getting hit financially that they care now. You know, they don't care about the club. They care about what's in their pocket. And you've got, I mean, you'd have thought with Avram Glazer, he'd sort that absolute monstrosity out the back of his head because he's had millions of pounds to do it. Get a transplant, man, because that is embarrassing. Wow. But honestly, it's bollocks. It's all bollocks. And then the next day, Neil Ashton, who used to work for the Sun, who's a PR guy at United, he's putting out, telling his little mates at the Sun, "I'll put out a PR piece saying we're going to pay 90 million for Harry Kane." It's just like, what fantasy world do they think we're living in? Honestly, they can't afford to go and spend loads of money on players. And, you know, I've seen there's an acceptance that United are going to get poor players. An acceptance. We earn the most money in the Premier League and people are accepting dog shit players. Really? Really? And then you got Casey Stoney, who's dipped because she hates the club at the moment because of the way that she's been treated with the women's team, because they haven't got any training facilities. You know, they've got a field and a porter cabin. Oh yeah, that's helpful, isn't it? And they're supposed to be treated equally and the same. And, you know, you think with all that shirt money that they got in from the women's team at the start, they'd invest it back into the facilities, but no. And who told her to leave? Who told her that facilities would get better? Sorry, John Murtough. And I said to you, didn't I, James? I said to you when this guy came in, we'll find out in the next few months whether he really is the real deal and whether he cares about this football club. And he's proven within about 2 months of getting appointed that he does not give a shit about the football club. He cares primarily about the Glazers and what financially, you know, they're going to get every year. Don't let up, because you'll get a garbage summer transfer window. You might get Sancho, but you get 2 dross players to go alongside him. So don't let up. Keep hitting them in their pockets, because that's all they know is money. That's all they care about, money. I've seen people going after Joel Glazer's daughter, her business. I don't condone threats or violence or anything, but if you have to push and, you know, do what we're doing with the TeamViewer website and, you know, cost them over 1.5 million, which is already in ad revenue between the companies. Millions, thousands of pounds don't matter to these companies. Millions of pounds matter to these companies. That's when they sit up and take notice. So be relentless with these lot, because this is not the first. This is the first Super League, but it will not be the last. They'll try this again. I bet you. Fair
enough. You heard the man. Glazers out, all that malarkey. But I'll leave it open to anyone else who want to say anything, unless that's it. No, all sorted. Right. Well, that's it then. Thank you very much for watching. Massive thank you for you to Joe for joining us. Really appreciate you coming on. Check Joe out on Twitter if you want early lineups. Wink, wink. But yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for getting involved, and we'll hopefully see you next week for another episode.
Manchester United are the champions of Europe again.